At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Welcome to the Ankler Podcast. It's Thursday, November 14th, and I'm Elaine Lowe, author of the series Business Newsletter, here with the Wake Up's Sean McNulty and the Ankler himself, Richard Rushfield, who, unlike Disney chief Bob Iger, is definitely not going to have a hot mic moment on the pod today, right?
The night is young.
Richard loves a hot mic. You know, that's I gotta say.
Every mic is a hot mic.
Every mic's a hot mic with Richard. Exactly right. Yeah.
People start telling me how Apple will never buy Disney, and that's never going to happen. You don't know where tempers will go.
A hot mic for Richard would be denying that deal for once, Elaine. I think if he said that would be something off the cuff from her.
Can you believe Richard thinks Apple and Disney aren't going to merge someday?
Oh my! Did you know his mic was on? Yeah, that's total BS. That's not happening.
He's
they're
doing
fine.
it for the clicks.
They're focusing on
doing it for the clicks.
They're focusing on the watches this year.
Yeah, exactly. The home devices. Yeah.
We're talking, of course, about today's Disney's big quarterly earnings call, where Iger, normally a pretty smooth operator, was like, I don't know if I was supposed to drop those AVOD numbers on the call.
It was surprising to hear. Yeah.
And, you know, we've just about wrapped up earnings season for media and the entertainment segment. And I'm super curious about your big picture takeaways, Sean. But first, shout out to Spotify with a nice little achievement this week, yeah?
You know, it's 18 years and they finally found an annual profit. So, you know, Richard, hope is still out there. 18 years to find a year of profitability. That's not a bad ratio, right?
I mean, could have been never. So
true.
Yeah, so if you're a company that's been losing money for a mere decade now, there's still, don't give up.
Plenty of time, 8 years. Yeah. I mean, you know, Peacock, you got until at least 2034 or something like that.
Is that really how long it's been?
They've been, you know, they existed for 18 years. They came to the U.S. either 2011 or 2013. So, you know, give or take 10 or 12 years as a global business. But yeah, it's going to be over $1 billion. Like they lost over $500 million last year, and they're going to be clearing over $1 billion this year. So it's an inspirational tale, Elaine, for all the kids out there looking to make it big in the streaming business. It is possible.
The point is, only little people like us think of a business in terms of what's the business worth to you. It's a question of what's the business worth to someone else. That's
what their Spotify Wrapped will say this year. Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I may be losing tons of money, but you,
sir,
combine it with your direct shoe sales company, then
sky's the limit.
The hockey stick.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of a company that has many irons in the fire, let's get back to the company of the hour, Walt Disney. Strong fourth quarter, stock popping on Thursday. It's a nice setup for 2025, given how down everyone's been feeling about the state of the business this year. And again, strong numbers that we'll dive into soon. But first, a word from outside that there might be a new plot twist to this season of Disney's Succession, right? Just who will succeed Bob Iger after 2026? Well, the Wall Street Journal reported this week that the House of Mouse is looking at some, quote, fresh candidates. Some of those names swirling in the ether, actually the main name swirling in the ether, includes Electronic Arts CEO Andrew Wilson, according to this report. What do you make of that, Richard?
I make that Andrew Wilson really wants you to know that Disney thinks he could be the next CEO.
You think the leak is not coming from inside the Magic Kingdom?
I don't think Disney is calling up the Wall Street Journal saying, "Oh, do you think we can get Andrew Wilson? What do you think of this? Will he take a meeting with us?
Will he take a meeting?
Do you know anybody close to him? We'll see if Andrew Wilson is renegotiating his deal at EA there or something like that.
Check the contract.
At this moment, but he seems to be very eager to have people know that he could be the next. He's this close to being the next Disney CEO.
What do you think those odds are, Sean? I mean, now that we're not potentially looking outside of the top 4 internal candidates, at the end of 2026, we got a long timeline.
Yeah, exactly. We still have, what we got? We'll call 15 months, something like that, I guess, at this point, whatever it might be, maybe close to 18. But yeah, I mean, this is people wanting to get the message out. If you're one of the 4 current candidates, it's not a very encouraging sign, but I think this is probably not news to them at this point. But they also want to reinforce, again, to the cheap seats, Elaine, they are looking, they're on it. This is job number 1 there. So they're getting new names. They're moving really fast here.
Gorman's earning his paycheck, right?
Exactly right. Yeah, the new guy. Yeah, exactly. It's not even officially. He's not even officially the board yet. So he's already making moves here, Lane. So things are moving real fast.
This was my favorite tidbit from the report that Iger apparently called up Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos earlier this year to ask if their dual CEO setup worked, and I thought that was interesting because, I know this is something we've talked about before, whether this is a 1 or 2 CEO job. And apparently he wanted to know, quote, how the arrangement was going and if Sarandos thought it could work at Disney, according to people familiar with the conversation.
Interesting. All right. Interesting. He didn't call Reed. He called Ted, one of the co-CEOs. But, that's it. It didn't call Greg. So, I guess that maybe Greg, I don't know, that would be the other part of that equation. But
odds are Ted isn't going to say, no, this isn't working.
Yeah, again, I don't think it was Disney who said, we reached out to Netflix to get some advice on how we could do a co-CEO thing. It's someone at Netflix was just sharing, our co-CEO thing is working so well that Bob Iger has been calling,
seeking our counsel, yes,
to see how he could replicate the Netflix miracle.
Yeah. Always follow the angles.
This is such an inside baseball tangent, but I always love looking at a story and trying to figure out sort of the triangulation of where the sourcing is coming from and who's talking to who's reaching out to who here.
Yeah, it's generally not the person that not the company that the story's about. I'll put it that way. Yeah, as Richard's saying, whoever the new party of the news item is probably related to the source of the information.
Who thinks they look good from the
right?
Story,
yeah, or that. Right? Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, looking at what Disney actually did say today, their Q4 report included double-digit revenue gains in the entertainment segment, theme parks slowly rebounding from a sluggish patch, and what's this? A profitable streaming business, Sean? What were your major takeaways?
That's, let's leave with the positive, Elaine, here, right? We have $253 million. We found it under the couch cushions there at Disney, and for a streaming profit in Q3. They lost about $150 million a year ago. So again, this turnaround is continuing. This is what Iger promised this, and he delivered on it. So kudos to Bob and the streaming group there. They added 4.4 million subs for Disney Plus. Hulu added 700,000. So, good positive streaming subscriber growth there. Yeah, I mean, this is, out of a theme. We're seeing a bit of, we're coming out, it's the end of 2024, which is kind of, when we go back in the time machine, Elaine, to 2019. Yeah,
you look at their targets. It was 20, wasn't it 24?
2024 was kind of the year that everybody was just like, hey, it's going to take
I might actually turn it around, turn the corner there.
Yeah, exactly. And if the economy hadn't made the turn that it made, and interest rates hadn't made the turn, and Netflix hadn't, there would have been less pressure on this to get to this point. But they can only accelerate it so much, I guess, Elaine. There wasn't so much they could do to accelerate it. But it's arrived. We're here. It's November 2024, and lo and behold,
is Disney the third company now to turn? It's Netflix and then WBD.
Well, Netflix, sure. Yeah, WBD had a profit,
right?
And then Disney, and even Paramount technically had a profit this quarter. They're not going to be profitable for the year. So, I mean, you're getting, Peacock's the real lagger here, who's still losing, the old style $400 million a quarter thing. But everybody else, there's next year will be, Paramount's kind of on the teetering, depends upon which quarter it is and international versus domestic. But WBD is going to be, they said they're going to have $1 billion of profitability next year. So they're on there. Disney. So this narrative is changing, and we'll get to a little bit this more, a bigger picture here, Elaine. But so yeah, streaming, pretty good. Price hikes, who knew, Elaine? Price hikes, just the most magical thing in the world at Disney. Bob Iger has yet to meet a price hike he did not like. I mean, for all the crap that Bob Chapek took for price hikes, and listen, Bob Iger's been doing the same move for the past 2 years here. So, and there's more. CFO Hugh Johnston said the majority of the growth in the future of streaming business will be from price hikes, not from subscriber growth. There will be subscriber growth, but more of the revenue growth will be from raising prices again. Fun fact, Elaine, Hugh and I went to the same high school. So I thought you'd appreciate that.
Which high school? Yeah. Where about?
Well, I'm not going to give you plugs my high school. Elaine. Come on now. But I'm just saying different years. But Hugh, I'll see you at the reunion this spring. So just shout out to Hugh.
All right. But then what about linear TV?
Well, yeah, I mean, that back to the good old advertising business. I mean, ads are the future as well. Iger's, back to the hot mic thing we were referencing is that he mentioned that 37% of U.S. streaming subscribers are now ad tier. That's presumably across Disney Plus and Hulu. 30% are internationals the same way. So big on advertising. And Richard, they're coming back to this thing now where, there's this 5 or 6 year period where they all want to be Netflix and HBO and have no ads. And that's not what they know how to do. These companies, meaning Paramount, Disney, NBC, they're ad sales companies. This is what their decades of history is. And it's like, they're coming back to this. I'm like, hey, remember their ad department used to sell a lot of our, but that was a pretty good business, no? So they're bringing that ethos back to streaming. And they want to encourage more streaming ad tier growth in streaming, Elaine, is what Iger was very much out front saying. But Richard, it's like they've kind of discovered, oh yeah, we're ad sales companies. We're not HBO, SVOD, no commercial businesses,
Everybody working their way back to their core competency and rebuilding Hollywood of 1993.
Worked out pretty well then. So yeah.
Unfortunately, there's an internet now. So if people are annoyed by these commercials, they don't have 2 other choices. They have 2 billion other choices of where to turn. So
yeah, but the internet is also stuffed with advertising and things too. But no, but now you at least have the option. If you want to have an ad-free experience, you couldn't before, Richard. If you wanted to watch, the shows on FX without ads, you didn't have a choice. Now you do. So you got to pay a lot more for it. So that's the net of this. I think that the consumer does have more choice, but it's coming at a price, and that's probably where the price tags will come, Elaine. But back to linear TV, back to that side of the ad business. It's just, they don't seem too concerned about it. And they did if you look at the losses between, and I brought the numbers down in the wake up today, but between the linear, loss and profitability and the streaming gains, like they are offsetting the loss in the linear TV business from cord cutting. But, the cable channels lost on their 7% of their distribution.
Yeah, how's good old ESPN doing?
ESPN's they're flat, and it's like, which is fine, I think, for them to a degree. But they're business still throws off $900 million of profit a quarter. So you're talking $3.5 billion a year in profit alone from ESPN. So not a bad business. That includes the linear business and streaming and all that kind of thing. But you have like Freeform, and from 1 year lost 16 million subscriber households. That's mainly due to, now, thanks a lot, Charter, but they went from 71 to 55 million for distribution. So if you're wondering why all the original programming and all that stuff got pulled from Freeform, there's your answer right there, But even the other networks are at about 65 million, 66 million. That's, meaning FX, Disney Channel. Another year from now, what is down to 60? It's just like the melt keeps going here and there's no signs of it stopping. And over a 2-year period, the linear TV business, both ABC and the cable TV networks, has lost $430 million of revenue and over $300 million of profitability, down 38% in 2 years. That's 2 years. Give me 2026. That wasn't the lead of the call, Lane, obviously.
Sure.
But it's out there, and it's, but streaming is making up for some of these gains.
What about any bright sports? Sports?
Bright spots.
Bright spots. Sports.
Exactly. Well, Richard keeps, slacking me about what's all the ESPN flagship details going to launch. Richard, I don't know. I'm just for the 10th time. It's going to be next fall. So, ESPN has to turn a corner, and that, direct to consumers on the forefront, Elaine, and that, that's going to be, there's no details yet, but that's the real that's probably the biggest thing looming in the Disney world at this point, is because ESPN, as I mentioned, $3.5 billion of profits. But again, cord cutting, ESPN also lost, I think, 6 million households this year or over the past 12 months, Elaine. So that's going in one direction. Those losses will get more real. They have a big NBA check coming next year, which will start in the fall as well, or an increased NBA check next year. So there's a lot riding on that, but more to come with sports. In the meanwhile, they have their deals locked up for a while. So we'll see about that.
But a good year at the box office for the House of Mouse. $4 billion so far, and that's before the Moana and Lion King sequels later this year.
Yeah, that's been the narrative of the year. The big, massive turnaround. But Richard, as you always, business of hits. You had last year was one to forget, but you have more movies coming this year, and those movies weren't made in the past 9 months. They were made, greenlit 2 years ago. It's just the cycle of this, Richard. It's like, all right.
The problem is that it will always be a cycle. That you
of course, yeah, exactly. Right.
When you get to hits, you will keep doing them until the hits become flops, and then and then you're in a tough. And no one will ever spend as much while they're in the middle of hits as bringing out the next thing as they should. So
There's no cure for this. It's decades and decades old history here, Richard. There's been no variation from that at all. That division, Elaine, the movie, they had all the licensing is in that, so you don't quite know. The profitability was, I think, $318 million, something like that, for the quarter. But that also includes the licensing of TV shows. That's the TV studios involved in that. So that's in one budget line. So it wasn't just Deadpool and Inside Out and Alien.
Right. Although even just strictly at the box office, that creates a tough comp for next summer with Inside Out 2 and Deadpool versus Wolverine. What do they have on
What do you got next? What do you got for me next? What do you got coming on? Yeah, that's great, guys.
What have you done for me lately?
That's fine. Wall Street's looking ahead, right? They're very forward-looking company. I hope you like the Fantastic Four, Elaine. That's the big July movie
next summer. Okay.
Thunderbolts is kicking off in May, so that's back to our Marvel thing. We have original Elio from Pixar, the original film there, so we'll see if
so we'll see some question marks.
The Fantastic Four certainly has some question marks as a franchise, I think, as a history.
I was going to say, historically, the Fantastic Four has not been a huge hitter as a franchise. I loved the animated series in the 90s.
Okay.
So I'll check it out.
No, but Richard is to the point where, I mean, again, Hollywood's coming back to being this less sexy business where if you have hits, it's great. If not, and then you have a library that gets you through. I mean, Sony also reported numbers from Friday last week, Elaine, Sony, and
sort of a parallel, right?
I mean, they're the most pure studio there is. They're tucked inside of big Sony there, but they had, $218 million of profitability. It was down a little bit, but that's not a bad, they're making money. They're not losing money. The movie business is 42% of Sony Pictures Entertainment's total revenue there. So going around, so you have a few more hits in one quarter, great. You have a few more that didn't work, a little bit lower, but it's not a disaster, and it's not, it's employing thousands of people and who get to make TV shows and movies for a living. It's like that is the goal here, I think, in the end, right here, as far as I understand it, in this town. So not bad.
So taking a look at this earnings season, how are you feeling about the upcoming year? Does this inspire any hope? I mean, with all the sort of collective forward-looking comments that you've heard over the last couple of weeks, what's your sense of things?
Yeah, I have to kind of go back and recount, kind of collectively bring the numbers together to see what it is. But it's, I think, back when we started this top of this conversation, Elaine, it's just like, these bad narratives we had for 4 or 5 years here, they're really starting to turn. I mean, linear is a huge problem. That has to get, I have a few thoughts on that I'll be sharing in the weeks ahead on what might be ahead there. But other than that, back to fundamentals, selling ads, doing things, releasing films in theaters. This stuff still works in an age of a, digital,
the
revolution
stuff that has traditionally worked still seems to be working. So maybe the vibes are good going into 25.
It's a little bit like, hey, that was fun doing that, but man, this is probably the better way to go for us. I mean, you look on, but even like in the new era we live in, right? It's like, look at Netflix. Like every week I, chart the films, and it's like usually half of the films in the US on the US top 10 chart of Netflix are studio films. It's like the library means something. You cannot replicate this stuff. You can, there's only so much of it, and they own it. So there's take pride in it,
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you look at Disney, you can look at Moana 2 as just sort of brand maintenance. Like if you can give the whole Moana enterprise another big burst of life, that's how much is that worth over 10 years, having a vital Moana as opposed to something that's just, in 10 years, if you hadn't done anything, it would kind of frittered away and be gone. Like that's worth billions.
Yeah, Niger actually alluded to that in the call today, Richard. He's noting like the streaming. It's like when you have a new movie come out, it brings up all the old library viewing of all the other films. So it's that's actually a tangible point he actually mentioned, Richard, where it's like it's not just the value of the Moana 2 or Mufasa, it's the value that it brings to Disney Plus because it's also the home of the Lion King and everything. That you can kind of enjoy that stuff. So
and toys and rides. I mean, on top, cruise ships and reselling and second windows for some of the people or third windows and it's what keeps the whole place going, the sort of brand maintenance. But if Moana 2, which doesn't seem likely to happen, we'll talk about that later, but if Moana 2 were a complete flop, I mean that's
you have to execute. Yeah, that's for sure.
That's a miss that's worth a lot there.
Yeah, very true. So
all sounds like a lot for just one person to oversee. Anyway, after the break, we're going to dig into some reasons for Hollywood to keep plugging away. Like I said, maybe the vibes are good now going into the new year. I don't know. Is that too much to say after a whole year of saying survive till 25? But we're going to find out after this break.
Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
Hi, I'm Eric Barmack, and I'm a working producer, and I write the Real AI newsletter for The Ankler. Real AI is your destination to understand the truth about AI and entertainment, who's using it, how they're using it, and the technological change already here in the industry. I care about AI because it's changed the way I run my own business and even pitch and sell shows. I've used AI for script coverage, to help my team brainstorm concepts, and even to come up with pitch decks. Real AI will also tell you more about the fast-moving technology the studios and streamers are tracking and how that will impact your job both today and tomorrow. I believe being informed is the only way to face the new frontier right here at our doorstep, which I believe can help foster the best in our human creativity, something that can never be replaced. Real AI comes out every other Tuesday as part of a paid subscription to The Ankler, so please join me by subscribing at theankler.com today.
Welcome back to the Ankler podcast. Before we get into a look ahead at the new year, don't forget to check out all of our features and newsletters at theankler.com, including Ashley Cullen's piece on the Pixar of AI companies, Nicole Laporte's latest feature on how the Cybertruck has become a Hollywood reject, and also a revisitation of our series from Linda Ong examining the American audience and how that can inform the industry in the wake of the election. All right, for now, taking a little look ahead. Richard, how are we feeling? We feeling hopeful here? We're at mid-November. We've got Thanksgiving fast approaching in 2 weeks, and then the town's going to shut down for a couple of weeks.
I wouldn't say I'm optimistic, but I would say that a lot of our worst demons and a lot of the asteroids headed for Earth tend not to hit in the end. And we are still here. We still have, the story just hasn't changed that much this year. We still have our legacy studios. The number has not shrunk yet.
Yet, being the operative word.
Yeah, the audience for movie-going has not, as was forecast thousands of times over the last decades, has not disappeared.
Past 5 months ago, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's still appetite for movie-going. People were supposed to cut back and only have 2 services. The deal was it could only be 2 or maybe 3 services, and that hasn't happened yet. And the things that Hollywood makes are still very popular, and you have things that draw eyeballs or get people out of their house to go someplace. That's worth a lot. The problem is like the structure of the companies, and they have these big problems at the center of it. But you can say, well, it's not crazy to say, well, that's their problem, and good luck to them to sort it out. But while there's a market for movies and TV shows, and for all the global production and everything, there's still no one that can compete with high quality, high production value English language programming is still rules the world, and there's no real competitor to it. So there's a lot of reason just to think that the companies will have their problem, and that'll be their problem, but entertainment making will go on.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, and I will second that. Just that international notion of, yes, there's a lot of small, like, this does well in this market, and this market, and this market. They don't travel. I mean, a big hit in India, if it does $150 million globally, that's a major, major success. I mean, that's a flop in America. I mean, China has never gotten out of the country. They make a lot of money in the country. They've had billion-dollar hits, but those films do not travel.
And that's been the Netflix experience and they will be the first to tell you this, apart from a couple exceptions like Squid Game and everything, right. People watch productions in their own language group and English.
They'll watch. Yep.
That's what they don't watch French shows in Bulgaria, and they don't watch Spanish language shows in Iceland by and large.
Although
To a large degree.
I was going to say, still higher audience crossover rates than historically. I mean, just given how much more access we have to it.
Well, it's higher than zero. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, Richard, there is some usage of it, but it's just nowhere near Elaine. I think the point being, it's yes. Well,
there's a lot. If you want to talk about scaling up, there's a lot of room to grow. Sure.
Sure. And but the number 9 movie on Netflix last week was a French family adventure movie or something, So yeah, but that's 1 out of 9 and it's number 9 and it's 1 week and it'll be gone. It's like, what the number 1 movie in the world was? The Netflix Christmas movie. That played everywhere from the US. So it's like, that's I think the push pull on that. So that's optimism to it.
There is no other production capital that is a direct threat to Hollywood. And for a time, it was seen that Hong Kong would threaten Hollywood or Korea or the other, and they can do a good business there. But
it's a great business. It's not like it's not authentic, but it's just nowhere near the scale and influence that Hollywood still has as we enter 2025, Elaine. And I'll bring another back thought here. We just finished up Halloween. It's like, where people, where the kids dressing up as? They're dressing up as it's Beetlejuice, it's Minion, it's like it's not the YouTube influencer, it's not like, there probably is some of that, but
that's the other thing. It's English language and it's high production value English language.
That's what we do well. We still do it well. So, as an industry, and that has not been overtaken by, even, I don't know. I don't know if anybody was dressing up as anything from a Netflix movie over the holidays. It's like, things like that are going to take over the world. So Hollywood still does as well and should take pride in it. And thankfully has right size. And we've talked a little bit about this, Elaine, but 2025 is going to be a massive year at the box office. Like all the numbers are going to be up. Like it's just going to be the momentum, as Richard
Wait, what's going to create that momentum though? I mean, is that based up purely on the titles that you see coming out, or is that just on moviegoer trends?
It's bad. There's movies in theaters, and remember the strikes. We're coming off a strike-affected year on the whole most part there. So it's just, purely there's volume, and then there's more of it. And then they're bigger movies. So there's not this drought anywhere in the schedule. So that alone will be just that narrative will change naturally. So every week will be like, oh, it's not down from this week. It's like, no, it's probably up every week for the most part from this year. Maybe. It's not getting back to that again pre-COVID level. It's like, yeah, okay, that maybe that volume's not there, but we're finding. There's been investment. Movies take time, right? And so it's like, all right, they made the investment. It's coming to fruition in 2025. The strikes put a delay in that. It would have been more in 2024 had that not happened, but it pushed to 2025. So that's a positive thing. So there's going to be a lot of change. We all know that. Let's not make any regard that this has settled out anywhere. But Richard, let's just go through, Netflix making money hand over fist, there's no, and they're employing a lot of people and making a ton of movies and TV shows. And that's the whole goal here. Disney, from these numbers, Elaine, seems to have found their way through there a bit. Lionsgate has hung their for sale sign out, but they're still investing. And they announced 6 new movie projects in the month of October. So it's like they are investing.
Have we gotten any sense of the spending numbers, the content spend from some of these calls that you've heard? Because I know I went to the HBO and Max Slate presentation earlier this week where Casey Bloys was saying spend there is essentially going to be flat. But obviously when you account for inflation, that kind of means down, which is typically what people say when it's going to be flat. But yeah, what's the spend over at Netflix and Disney looking like?
Netflix is still hovering 17 to 18, a year. But you're also throwing WWE Raw into that. But again, we learned this lesson. Making more is not the answer here. It's like just making Richard's point, the quality, keeping your eye, on the ball of this stuff. That's really the more important part. If you can nail the execution on the big things you are doing, that is far outweighs making 100 more of them, which all go nowhere. So I think that's, one lesson to take away there. But yeah, Warner Bros. Discovery, we've talked about it, Richard. We talked about, question mark, something's going to happen there. We don't know what. Paramount, new management cutting the keys next year. So we're going to see how that goes. They have $1.5 billion worth of cuts there to make that they promised. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but trend-wise, it just feels like, it's...
We're not out of the woods, but we've got momentum.
I'm glad it's 2025 and not going into 2023 or 24. So, put it that way.
I think most people can agree on that.
Yeah.
But to be revisited if a movie studio disappears.
So, yeah, Lionsgate is a big question mark in terms of what that future might be, that's for sure.
Or others.
Or others. All right. There you go.
Although, speaking of movies, we've got the holiday season approaching, Sean. Now, this is your wheelhouse, so I'm going to let you take it from
it's
here.
Elaine's favorite
What's
time
on
of year.
tap? I
It's
know.
Elaine's
You know
favorite
I
time of
love
year.
predictions.
This is it. It's time to put the Richard, get your expert sash on. You have there's some from the summertime, I think, somewhere. It's time for our holiday box office predictions. We have holiday season kicking off with Red One from Amazon MGM this weekend. So I figured it is time for us to put it all on the line, push the chips in, Richard. A lot of big movies. We've talked about them here coming up. We will, as always, we hold ourselves accountable. So come early January, I'll revisit this podcast and see what the hell we all said.
Who won last year?
Oh, I don't know. I never visit that far back, but I can find out. I'll go find out who has the hat. We really got to get that Barbie hat going around. Probably that's how we'd remember. Whoever has the Barbie hat last would be the one who won. But all right, Richard, top three. We're standing here in early January. What are the top three biggest movies in the U.S.? 1, 2, 3, go.
Moana 2, Wicked, Mufasa.
All right, Elaine, what do you got?
I'm going to go with Wicked, then Moana 2. I'm going to say Gladiator 2.
Nice. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to be real original here. I'm going Richard's Moana 2 and then Wicked, but I'm going with Sonic 3.
Ooh.
As my third place.
Does he still have those weird little human teeth in this one?
Okay. That was the first. They changed that before the first one ever started. That whole thing that got fixed. Yeah, that's an old thing. So yeah.
So then in that case, yes, I'm sure it'll do fine.
No, Lane's fine with it. Okay, thank you. Yes. All right. So other films we are not. Well, we covered pretty well. I mean, there's also Kraven the Hunter from Sony, which we'll see how that goes. But I mean, that is kind of the
seems like a niche play.
Yeah, we'll see how that Marvel film goes out there, and then Red One this weekend, which is tracking okay but not great. So battle for third place, it seems like, is probably going to be the winning factor here for the three of us. All right.
If Wicked and Moana 2 are not the top two in one order or another, then
are you going to eat your Barbie hat?
Well, that's a disaster for
that's a disaster. That's probably his bigger ramifications
for whoever is not in the top two. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. Also, still a lot of prestige films. I like Oscar caliber films coming out here in November and December. I will run through some of these titles, Elaine. So we have Queer, we have Night Bitch, we have Nickel Boys, The Room Next Door, The Brutalist, Complete Unknown, Nosferatu, Baby Girl, 2073, and The Fire Inside, all still to come. What's going to be the biggest, Richard, prestige breakout? What do you think is going to be the breakout of the end of the year here? Conclave's doing very well as presently, so shout out to Conclave, still doing very well.
And I bet Conclave continues to do well.
I think that might still take the title regardless of any of these movies.
I have Oscar chips on A Complete Unknown, so I could see that coming. Timothy Chalamet as Bob Dylan. People love a musical bio. People love Timothy Chalamet. Dylan is a baby boom, Nobel Prize winner. So hasn't been seen on the big screen. So I think there's a lot supporting that. I'd keep an eye on Night Bitch also. Another Searchlight. I was at the premiere in Toronto. Was really favorably received. Yeah. A very relatable motherhood fable there. So that could be. And Nosferatu is the other one.
So you had a Complete Unknown to be, for the record, that is your choice, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. Elaine, what do you got?
Okay. Wait, like in terms of box office performance?
Yeah.
I wish I had a different top one from Richard, but I was going to go with Timmy Chalamet because I think it's kind of hard to beat Bob Dylan and Timmy Chalamet together. So A Complete Unknown.
All right.
I actually know not a whole lot about Night Bitch, but based on title alone, I would be like Night Bitch.
You're intrigued.
Yeah. Or what I'm called when my children wake me up at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Night Bitch has potential to be a kind of phenomenon movie.
Talked about and
what it taps into about motherhood and all this.
Okay. So it actually is like a motherhood movie, huh? Interesting.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
What's the premise?
She has a 2-year-old she is raising. She's given up work to raise her 2-year-old. Her husband is traveling all the time. So she's alone in the house with this 2-year-old and trying to, and kind of losing her mind with it.
Oh, highly relatable content. We'll watch. Yeah. Okay, sold.
Right. Elaine, maybe Night Bitch is maybe that's your call. Yeah, exactly.
I've also heard great things about Nickel Boys.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Based on the Colson Whitehead novel. Yeah.
All right.
What about you, Sean?
I'm going Nosferatu, which kind of straddles a couple of lines. It is definitely has that horror contingent, but it's, obviously I think definitely going more for the prestige play. But I think that Robert Eggers, another next outing from him. So that
what
one to
is
me.
Robert Eggers' highest grossing so far?
Well, he did The Northman a couple years back with Skarsgård, which did rather well. But yeah, I mean, not necessarily. It's a risk. I'm like, but they put the teaser out for that, which got a lot of response earlier this month, I believe. So yeah, that's where focus. I think I have some hope on that one. So that's my choice. So we shall see. All right, final one, guys. Final category. We're going to go streaming, so I'm doing a little variation here.
I don't even know who the candidates are here.
Well, this is where we have, it could be holiday themed and streaming. So here we go. So we have 4 Netflix #millennial Christmas movies this year. Which one will be the most popular? Here are your 4.
One with Ryan Reynolds.
That's from 2 years ago, Richard. That was on Apple. Anyway. All right. We got four candidates here. We have Meet Me Next Christmas with Christina Milian. Kind of the serendipity, I just missed her approach. So, meet you next year kind of vibe. We have The Merry Gentleman with Britt Robertson and Chad Michael Murray, also known as the holiday male stripping movie, I think, or cabaret movie. We have Hot Frosty with Lacey Chabert, the What If Frosty the Snowman looked like a male stripper movie. So that would be an homage to Frosty the Snowman.
I've wondered that so many times. That's,
well, Netflix has a movie for you, Richard. So there you go. And of course, we have Our Little Secrets with Lindsay Lohan, the classic holiday with the family, but hidden secret relationship movies. So we've got a few genre here. So
I've forgotten.
You forgot all these already, Richard?
I've forgotten those 4, like in the.
As Christmas movies are meant to
60
be.
seconds.
You consume these frothy little confections and then they just dissipate from your brain. And then you get to watch them afresh the next season like you've never seen it before.
Don't know what's going to happen at all. Yeah.
Or you don't. I think my kids will be rewatching the Ryan Reynolds, Will Ferrell one.
The Spirited movie. Okay. All right. Fair enough. So. Richard, I'm putting you down for Hot Frosty, Richard. That's it. You're all right. Yeah. All right. So that's it. All right. Elaine, what do you got? Which one of those
Lohan.
4s?
I think it's Lindsay Lohan season.
I think
At least
you're probably right.
This is the only one of the 4 that I had actually heard anything about before you mentioned them here right now.
Fair enough. This is millennial Christmas. This is your people in millennial Christmas here. I know.
Lacey Chabert. Lindsay
all
Lohan.
People you grew up with. I mean, Chad Michael Murray. I mean, come on. All right. Well, I'm gonna go with the male strippers. I'm going with the Merry Gentleman guys. So I'm gonna pick that one. So I think we have it all covered here. So I'll keep you posted upon how the Netflix audience votes. So there's your holiday cheer. There's your holiday box office preview from 3 people who always know what they're talking about here at the podcast.
Don't check our past results.
Do not check past results. Do not indicate future
take our word for it.
Future success.
All right. On that note, we're going to close out today's pod. Make sure you are emailing us at podcasts@theankler.com. I can confirm we have actually opened up that inbox now. Would love to hear your feedback. Anything that you feel like we should be touching on in future episodes, or if there are any hot tips you'd like to pass our way. All right. And Richard, I know you're working on a special mailbag episode of the pod.
Yeah, we're going to have a very special edition of the podcast where we are going to answer our readers' questions. We want to hear from you. You can send it to me at richard@theankler.com or Elaine at elaine@theankler.com. Or what's yours, Sean?
Richard@theankler.com. Yeah, send all questions to Richard. Okay, okay. We'll keep it simple.
And Richard will screen Sean's emails.
Richard, yeah, exactly. Richard's in charge of this one. So yes, Richard's the mailbag guy.
It is not a competition between Elaine and I to see who gets more. So
it is. Send me your mail.
No one is counting how many
I'm counting.
we get respectively. So don't just send them to whoever you think would make the best use of them. Richard at the Ankler. We'd love to hear them, and we're going to do a special episode where we answer your questions. So send us hard ones. Stump the podcasters.
Whatever you got.
Excellent. All right. And make sure, of course, that you're going to theankler.com to sign up for our suite of newsletters and podcasts, and follow us on the socials at The Ankler. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. We'll see you next week.